general sense? All right, what's a special sense? Vision.
Smell.
Smell. Taste.
Hearing.
Hearing. Equilibrium. So there's only 5 special senses. Can we detect other things in the world? Okay. Yeah. Touch. Why is touch a general sense? Okay, thermoreceptors, pressure receptors, pain receptors, proprioceptors. Where do you find those receptors? Okay, lots of places, or all over. Can you detect touch pretty much all over your skin? Can you detect your body position for pretty much your whole body? Okay, I touch the table, I can feel it's cold. Or I touch the hot stove and realize that's a mistake. So a general sense has lots of receptors, and it's widely distributed. So do not fall for people who say humans only have 5 senses. We don't. We have more than 5 senses. But we have 5 special senses. What's so special about those 5 senses?
It's like one organ or something associated with it.
Okay, one organ associated with each. There are specialized organs that hold all of the receptors, and they all happen to be in the head. So, these are going to be a lot more complex than modified nerve endings. Okay, our modified nerve endings, really pretty simple. So, vision, what's our organ? Eyes. Taste. Taste buds. Smell. Olfactory epithelium. Or gustatory cells and olfactory cells. Hearing. In the ear. Equilibrium. In the inner ear. So, we have specialized organs to collect this information. Claiming about 70% of the body's sensory receptors are in our eyes. And a lot of the cerebral cortex is involved in the processing. What does that tell us about humans as a species? We are very visual. So we rely very, very heavily on having good vision, especially compared to many of the other animals of the world. Do we have the best vision? No. What kind of creature has far better vision than we do? Bird. Yeah, raptors. Eagles, hawks. They have fantastic vision. Because they're flying way up there, and they'll see a mouse move on the ground. Lunch. Okay, so we have our eye. And you will have to forgive us because a lot of our eye models are not necessarily in the best shape. Many of them are missing pieces. Yay! We do have some new ones on the wall. Go check those out. So when we are talking about the eye itself, we actually have accessory structures as well as the eyeball. So the eyebrows, the eyelids, the conjunctiva, the lacrimal apparatus, and the extrinsic eye muscles. Eyebrows, other than, I guess you do fashion things with them, they might serve if you've got nice overhanging brow ridges. They might provide some shade for you. They might keep things from from rain from falling in your eye drops, or from falling in your eyes. Maybe they played a bigger function in our ancestors. They don't really seem to play a direct survival role now. Eyelids certainly are going to help protect our eye and distribute the tears. So the conjunctiva. The conjunctiva is going to be the membrane lines the inside of the eyelids and the outside of the white part of the eye, which is called the sclera. The cornea does not have conjunctiva over it. It is clear. But then we have the eyelids and muscles. Okay, lacrimal apparatus. I'm trying to show this to Kendall. Lacrimal apparatus. So this is going to be the lateral part of this particular eye. This is going to secrete tears down across the cornea and into the space. And then it's going to drain out over here, and it's going to go down this duct, which is called the nasolacrimal duct. Okay, so lacrimal means tears. Nasolacrimal, where do you think that duct drains? In the nose, of course. So it's going to drain out go down the nasolacrimal duct. If you're upset and you cry, what happens with your nose? Your nose starts running. Because some of those extra tears are draining into your nose. So we make the tears here, they come across the eye, they drain out, and they drain into the nose. This is also the reason that you can have people that say that I've never watched this in person, and I'm sure I never want to see this. Evidently they can squirt milk out their nose. Has to do with that. Okay, that's very weird. But yeah, it has to do with this nasolacrimal duct. The extrinsic eye muscles. Let me see if this will actually let me pull it apart. There we go. Oh, so you can see on the inside, there's some of the tears. This is also another gland that will contribute to tears. But we're just going to call the lacrimal apparatus. We have muscles that are going to attach to the outside of the eye, and they move the eye. And we have superior, inferior, lateral, medial. We have two obliques that can cause rotation of the eye. The idea is that we can move these. These have the smallest motor units of any of the muscles in our body. What's a motor unit? Oh God, she went back and expected us to remember this. We've taken that test already. What's a motor unit? Yeah, they're very important to movement of skeletal muscles.
What the motor neuron sends it out to the function.
Okay, so you've got a motor neuron, and then what do you have?
A muscle.
The muscle fibers, the muscle cells, that it tells when to contract. So if you've got something like, in your quadriceps, one nerve probably tells 1,000 different fibers, or at least multiple hundreds, hey, contract now. You don't need a whole lot of finesse with your quadriceps. You have more finesse with focusing where your eyes are than you do with your fingers. Does that make sense? Because I can go ahead and look at Vanessa and look at, focus on one of her eyes and then change my focus to her other eye. And it will actually involve very, very slightly moving my eyes. So we really have very fine control. So we have the superior and inferior oblique muscles. And that leaves the eyes. What are the 3 cranial nerves that innervate these muscles? Nope. Optic and sensory.
Say 3.
Number 3, oculomotor.
Number
4 and 6.
4, which is trochlear. And 6, which is abducens. Your book, I'm sure, goes into a lot of detail on which nerve innervates which muscle. I don't know. Okay, but these are just showing the muscles and how they move. Any questions on the external structures? Cool. So let's get started on the eyeball itself. And the eyeball is often referred to as the eyeball because it's round. Yay. The outer layer is often called the fibrous layer because it's going to have fibers. The white part of the eye is going to be the sclera. The clear part, we're missing half the cornea, but it's going to be the cornea. The vascular layer, what do you suppose is going to be in the vascular layer? Blood vessels. And the inner layer is sometimes called the neural layer. And so that's going to be, if you hear about the retina, that's our inner layer. The anterior, the different chambers are going to be filled with humors. Humors mean fluid. We have an aqueous humor, watery fluid in the anterior part, and the vitreous humor, and I don't remember what vitreous means, but it's more jelly-like, and that's going to be in the posterior. So if I pull this apart, oh, I don't have a lens. Great. The lens would be here. And the lens is going to divide the eye into the anterior chamber and the posterior chamber. Segment, sorry. So the fibrous region on the outside. Fibrous region on the outside, white part is sclera. This means that this is going to be an irregular connective tissue. This is going to provide most of the shape to the eyeball. But the eye is not going to function if we can't let light in. So we have a different arrangement of proteins in the sclera. And this is actually transparent so that we can see through it.
So is the eye truly white, or is it just that?
Well, it looks white. If you think about the whites of your eyes,
like the sclera, is that promoting more the color? Is that the actual color of the full, like, that makes sense? Maybe. The only reason I ask that is because, like, one of the pictures in here, the actual inner part of the eye is much darker than the owl where that sclera is a much brighter white.
so if you look at somebody's eyes, human, not canine, human, not the bovine ones we're going to do, but if you look, you've got the iris, which is the color of your eyes, the blue, the brown, the green, the whatever. Around that is white. That color goes pretty much all the way to the back. So when we call it the whites of your eyes, it looks white. Sometimes there's staining and there's blood vessels on the outside, but yeah, it is actually white. Cornea is transparent so that we can get light in, otherwise the eye doesn't work. Trivia. The cornea is the only tissue in a body that can be transplanted without fear of rejection from anyone to anyone else. Okay, the vascular layer. The vascular layer is kind of this middle layer here. So it's going to have a lot of blood supply, which is the choroid region. That's how you say that crazy word, is choroid. The ciliary body, which is this structure right here, and then the iris, and the iris would be the colored part that you can see from the front of the eye. The ciliary body is going to actually hold the lens in place. It has and then the ciliary muscles, which are round, they're round muscles, will control how thick or thin the lens is. And I'm trying to remember the name of the ligaments that attach to the lens, and I'm drawing a complete total blank. Right, the iris is the colored part of the eye. What does it do? What's the hole in the center called, I should ask? The pupil. So the pupil can get constricted smaller or dilated larger. What does that control? How much light actually comes in. So, all right. So this one we actually have the lens. Suspensory ligaments. I knew they were ligaments. Okay. So this is ciliary body. This is ciliary body. Suspensory ligaments go to the lens. Here's our iris. There's the pupil in the middle of the iris. And then the choroid layer actually goes all the way back with the big blood supply in it. The other thing that the ciliary body is going to do, the ciliary body is going to secrete the aqueous humor. So the watery fluid in the front chamber of the eye is secreted here. And it's going to travel out through the pupil, and then it's going to drain. There's little canals down here. The scleral venous sinuses is what they're calling. They used to be called the canals of Schlemm. So that's our vascular layer. Innermost layer, this is going to have the photoreceptor cells, the ones that are going to interact with light to actually produce what we know as vision. So that's going to be called the retina. There is a separate blood supply to the retina, which is what they're looking at when they shine that super bright light and they look into your eye. That's what they're looking at, looking for. And then there is also a pigmented layer at the back to absorb any stray light that didn't happen to interact with a photoreceptor. One of the crazy things that happens in cats, dogs, horses, cows, pretty much all of the quadrupeds I used to have to work on, they will actually have a shiny area, almost like a mirror, at the back that allows, in low light conditions, it allows the light to come in and bounce back to try to help those animals have better low light vision than we do. We don't have that little mirror in the back, probably because we rely on having much sharper vision during the day. We don't want that splashback. But those animals don't rely as heavily on vision as we do. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to be mean to animals, I'm just being realistic. Okay. Well, you guys saw the sheep brain. The olfactory bulbs in the sheep were like 3 times the size of the brain we looked at in the cadaver lab. How heavily do we rely on our sense of smell? Yeah, we don't have enough schnoz to actually get a good sense of smell. And they do. They rely a lot more heavily on that than we do. what's a sheep going to use its eyes for mostly? Besides maybe not running into things. The sheep eyes are mostly kind of towards the sides of their heads because they're prey animals. And a lot of what their eyes are going to be specialized for is noticing movement to detect predators. So they can, I don't know, I guess they run, jump, I don't know what they do. I don't actually know what they do.
I'm sure they try. I don't know how successful they are. I'm sure they try.
Well, you know, maybe they have all that long wool so that, you know, as they're trying to get it, they're getting nothing but wool. I don't know. Sheep are dumb. I have anatomical proof. Sheep are stupid.
Well, you saw our brain.
Oh, yeah, that, I'm not even sure that one had a whole brain.
I'm not
It,
sure.
okay.
There's no,
The brain that they dissected, like, had no cerebellum at all.
it was gone. It was like mush. I was like, why don't I see the tree? It's supposed to be there.
So you kind of don't have a cerebellum, so you have the Charlie of,
Yeah.
you know, Charlie the cat of the sheep. So. All right, so under parasympathetic, the internal muscles are going to pull the iris closed, and under sympathetic, the external muscles, which are located, they're going to pull on that. Usually we're somewhere in the middle. Like I said, incomplete domination. Okay. So the retina, inner layer of the eye, the outer pigmented layer, and then the inner layer is the neural layer, or the retina proper. This is going to have three types of cells: the photoreceptors, the bipolar cells, and the ganglion cells. I don't know why they call them ganglion cells. I can sort of get bipolar because, like, the soma's in the middle, and they look like they can't figure out which way they're going. But yeah. The axons of the bipolar cells will join together and come form cranial nerve number.
Two.
Two! It's walking around with a two.
I wasn't sure if that was a V or a T.
Two. Oh, sorry, two.
Roman.
Okay, so two. Which is called what? Optic. And does it carry motor or sensory or both? Sensory. What sensory is it going to carry? Vision. Let's tie that up nice and neat, put a bow on it. If I flip a brain over and I put something by that X, are you going to be able to identify it?
Yes.
If not, get that way. There are only two cranial nerves I will ask you to identify from the brain. One of them is number 2, the optic nerve. And that would be on the lab practical, not on the written test. But yes, I expect you to be able to recognize
So the X itself is the optic
chiasm.
chiasm, right?
Yes.
And then in front of that would be the optic nerve.
The anterior portion would be optic nerve. So if I put it on the anterior portion, you're going to tell me optic nerve. And then it carries vision.
Mhm.
And it's cranial nerve number 2. You might need to know that. I don't remember all the questions that are on the lab practical. I just know that there's somewhere they're like, hey, identify this cranial nerve from the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm telling you either that or I'm going to be like, okay, let's find one with it labeled. I'll put it on the label. Because I don't think that's... You need to know the optic chiasm because it's a landmark. You should know the olfactory bulbs because they're kind of landmarks and they're cool. The rest of them, I don't know that they're landmarks. I can't keep them straight. I don't really see a huge reason for you guys to have to do that. Because, you know, you're gonna get in the future, and if you ever hear about this, you're gonna go look it up on your little portable computers anyway. That happened to double as phones. They got this phone app on it. Okay. But anyway, the axons of the ganglion cells are gonna leave as the optic nerve, and they're gonna go back towards the brain. So, the neural layer of the retinoid, you've got choroid, you're gonna have a pigmented layer, you're gonna have your photoreceptors. So, light is coming this way. The last layer they encounter is your photoreceptors. Then you have your bipolars, then you have your ganglion cells, and here you go out through the optic nerve. So let's talk about some photoreceptors. Actually, let's not, because I talked too long about other stuff. So let's take a break, and then we will come back and we will talk about photoreceptors.